and I just want to get it right. Innovations in public safety. Okay, I'm going to read, we have 3 panelists here. I'm going to read their bios real quick, and then we're just going to we'll roll up our sleeves and jump right in. And I know in the audience we have a lot of subject matter experts in this, and I hope this topic, based on the room, we'll have some feedback from you, some conversation, some questions, some comments, and we'll get a real good discussion going. So let me just jump right in. So Delegate Mark Sickles, House District 17, representing Fairfax County, Chair of the House Health and Human Services Committee, and Vice Chair of House Appropriations. Longtime friend of local government and responsible for legislation and budget amendments such as House Bill 2175 and this year's fire and EMS study that seeks to bolster public safety. Ladies and gentlemen, Delegate Mark Sickles. All right. And we also have Supervisor Joel Acree, Chair out of Wight County, Assistant Chief of Fire and Rescue Operations for York County Fire and Life Safety, where he has served for over 30 years. Mr. Acree serves our community as a volunteer firefighter for 30 years and as Fire Chief of Carrollton Volunteer Fire Department for 20 of those years before being elected to serve on the County Board of Supervisors. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joel, Supervisor Joel Acree. And bringing up the rear, not a stranger, Mr. Randy Campbell. He's the Regional Safety Manager, Blue Line Solutions. 20 plus years Virginia State Police veteran and sergeant, partner with VACo, who provides innovative solutions to local governments seeking to enhance public safety capabilities and improve traffic safety. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Randy Campbell. All right, so we're going to jump right in. Gentlemen, I don't know if I should ask a question or just kind of let you all just kind of give a brief intro of yourselves and some of the hot topics that are important to you right now for this nice panel here. And who do we start with? Y'all do paper, rock, scissors here.
Please tell. Well, good afternoon. I'm impressed that the room is so full because we're going up against housing, transportation, and sports tourism and public safety. So no one's going to come to public safety. Y'all do, that's great. My name is Mark Sickles. As I said, I was elected first in 2003, and this is my 21st year in General Assembly. Most of our community are on the Democratic Party side, which I know is different about Northern Virginia in a way. So 18 of my 21 years I've been in the minority. When you're in the minority, you learn to work with other people. And I've tried to do that over the years. I've got friends on both sides of the aisle. That's the only way to get things done. One thing that we tried to do in this latest version where the Democrats, we took control of the House just 1 year ago. We got a narrow majority, 51-49, is to let people know that it's all Virginia. It's not Northern Virginia, not I-64, 95 Carter, and the Speaker, first thing he did was create a select committee to look into rural and small town healthcare. And so that's gotten a lot of attention. We've had meetings around the state, and there's some tough solutions out there. It's problems facing rural America, not just rural Virginia. And in my role in the Health and Human Services, I'm chair of what would be called in Washington the Authorizing Committee, but also the Subcommittee in Appropriations on Health and Human Resources. One of our focuses to try to build our workforce. Any business person I talk to, no matter what the industry I'm in, raise your hand if you have plenty of workers. And you don't. So everyone I talk to, do not know where the next generation workforce is coming from. You know, we have a severe shortage of nurses. We're focusing on that, and we feel it's kind of our responsibility in General Assembly and these healthcare jobs to do our best to train people down here. And we've had problems in higher education. Everything's complicated in our smaller universities. We have enrollment declines. Our big universities are doing well. Our small ones are all face enrollment decline, and in Southwest Virginia, Bradford University produces a ton of nurses. We need them. So we are focused on those kind of problems, and since there aren't providers in communities, we were in Farmville. I thought Farmville was a bigger town, and maybe it is the biggest town in South Side Iowa. They don't have a physician that lives in town. They have one dentist. So when somebody needs, somebody's poor, and have insurance in particular, they have a huge transportation problem. We found the same thing with Tazewell. Number one problem is getting people to services, and the reason that's growing is because there's no services nearby. And the birthing unit problem has been discussed in the press around the state, and as you know, the birthing unit in Montgomery County was closed last year for the lack of workforce. It wasn't the fact that women weren't having babies, it's just that they didn't have anyone to help deliver the babies that could be there. So lots of challenges on that score. On the fire bills, we did want to get a little bit more technical report back than the first one you guys did, which was good. But the governor and the administration gave the study to the Wilder School. You probably know that. They were supposed to report out to us on November 1. Of course, we don't have a report from them yet. Hopefully that will help move some people. We always have debate. We'll continue forever with proper roles of local, state, and federal government. And the cost of equipment these days is beyond the means of many places in the state. So we got to figure out a way to make sure that everybody can get EMS services when they need it. And we're going in the wrong direction right now, but I know working with you guys, and I'd love to hear your ideas on all this. We can make it. We can make things better. I think we are going to have some substantial improvements based on the Rural and Small Town Healthcare Select Committee. We were only charged to do 5 things because we wanted to get 5 things that we could do. Most of them are going to cost money. Didn't talk about the state of the budget, but it's pretty good. We ended with a $1.2 billion, but the reforecast is going to be, we're going to find out what the governor's going to use with the reforecast since June 30th on December 18th when he introduces his amendments to the 2-year budget. You will recall that we do have a 2-year budget, so we all call it the budget on the 2nd year, but technically it's not. It went on many months, as you all know, a couple years ago, way into almost July 1, because we don't have to have it actually. We don't have to. The state can operate with the 2-year budget we passed, but there's always things that we learn about that need to be improved, that we need to invest in, that we learn how to do the job better. And so I'll just leave it at that. The door's always open. One unique thing about being on appropriations, or being vice chair of appropriations, and I don't know the history of this, but Luke Torian, the chair, and I work on the same hall with the staff. We're the only legislators in Richmond. The Senate doesn't do this, where on our floor, the only members on our floor are Luke Torian and myself, and all of our staff. So I have a richness of smart people around me that we depend on to make government work, and we hope we're trying to get to the place where we know at least half of what our staff knows, because staff is real important, and as complicated as government is now, we need them and rely on them, but you need to spend time with oversight too, which we are also trying to do a better job at, because with the complication, the size of government, the world changing, and if we don't oversee what the agencies are doing, we're not doing our job. So we're trying to do a better job of that. We have this is the last thing I'll say here. We have a joint, meaning Senate and House, oversight subcommittee for our Health and Human Resources Appropriations Subcommittee. So that's everything to do with Medicaid. All we're doing on crisis services now, trying to up our game with disability services. We've got 15,000 parents with disabled children who need help that are waiting for help now. these types of things. So anyway, thank you for inviting me, and first time I've ever been invited to VACo in my 21 years, so it's good to be here. See how healthy you guys are. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Yes.
Mr. Acree, so first of all, as they in the introduction alluded to the fact that I have in fact worked in Will County for a number of years as a career. My volunteer background is where I'm really based. That's how I really determined where I was going to go in this and my way of public service. When I look at this, I think about it, of course, being Veterans Day, and to have a servant's heart is really where our volunteers come from. A number of years ago, he was a BMI graduate in late 1960s, came to volunteer with us, and of course he was a little bit older than I. And one day I went to him and said, how's it going around here? Because there's a lot of young people around there. And he said, it's awesome, feels like home. He said, I was a 24-year-old lieutenant in Vietnam, and we were all kids back then. But when it came time to do our duties or to take on our assignment, we became men. And that's what he really enjoyed about serving with the volunteers. That's always stuck with me over the years. So I have to, on this day, of course, take an opportunity to thank all of our veterans, those who continue to serve, like Mr. Acree and others in the room, and also the ones in the room that I recognize that volunteer in their community in fire and rescue. From any challenge comes an opportunity. I've heard that numerous times, just to kind of give you a background, because I'm hoping this dialogue will continue outside the room. I wouldn't be on the board of supervisors if it hadn't been for my volunteer background, and I love to say it was a positive thing, but I had a county administrator at the time that wanted to sign an agreement on the building that the volunteers had built, and we weren't going to have that. So we went 2 years without funding. I ran for board of supervisors and got on the board and changed some leadership in our county because our volunteers come first. I strongly believe there shouldn't be anything more or anything stronger in our community than a taxpaying volunteer. So with that kind of gives you an idea where I'm coming from. I think this is an awesome opportunity. I don't want to hold up any more time than I already have, but for us to get the dialogue going and talk about public safety, and this guy right here hit on the law enforcement stuff. My background, like I said, career and volunteer. My sister, retired police enforcement from Newport News, city of Newport News. So the blue line and the red line definitely gel together. So
They do. When you put them together, they create a very unique color pattern. So during my time here today, I want to preface that my focus is on public safety on a local government level, also traffic safety. And when we use the term public safety, that's a term that we're all familiar with, but when I speak to you today, I want each one of you, I don't know very many people in the room personally, but I want you to know that I speak from experience. My background in the state police as a trooper and as a sergeant, and I feel very comfortable in my skin saying to an audience of people that I don't know that I care very deeply about people. And one of the unique perspectives that I bring, if you would have asked me one day, are you going to work in the private sector in the business world, Randy? I would have said no. I almost didn't pass business math in high school. But I say that to say this, the unique perspective is I started in 1990 when I was 21 years old. When I was growing up, I wanted to go into law enforcement. I wanted someone to teach me how to be a professional. I didn't know how to get there, but I'm very grateful that I got to where I am, because when I started, I call that the Flintstone period of public safety. And I can look at some of you, and some of you have been around since the Flintstone period, right? It's okay to laugh. This is an informal session. But we were very reactive in those years in our public safety responses. Very reactive. We now find ourselves in what I like to affectionately call the Jetson age of public safety. And if you don't know who the Jetsons are, see me after and I'll let you explain. But now, because of the technology that we possess, we don't have to be reactive anymore. We can be very professionally proactive. And I'll break that down as we move forward. But again, it's a privilege to be here. I want to give Jeremy a shout out. I think the world of this guy. He works behind the scenes. So it's a privilege to be here with you all.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Great lead in. We got a lot of topics to discuss. I'm going to jump right into the first topic and ask the delegate if you could summarize the key findings of the House Bill 2175 report from last year. How do these findings highlight the needs and gaps in Virginia's fire and EMS services?
Well, guess the enormity of the prices that have gone up and what the equipment costs it highlighted, and it tried to make the case that there should be a state role to helping communities with this. And you know, we didn't get a good reception originally from the administration on that, and the staff, you know, it might be different with the resources we have right now than the resources we had last year. But you know, starting a new program is a serious thing, as all of you know. I mean, you guys have been faced with this in your governments. You know, once you start something in government, it's very difficult to stop it. And I think there are people who believe that this should be a local responsibility. And so I know that localities could handle it, you know, over the years, and the case is going to be made hopefully now, because I believe that you guys need help. And I hope that the Wilder School report that comes out, it'll be a little bit more in-depth, I think. If you put it that way. In-depth is probably not the right word. You know, it comes from an outside group. I was just talking to Mr. Bailey, and he participated in both of them, but you know, when you're studying yourself and you decide you need something, it's less credible than someone outside studies you and they say you need something. So maybe we can make some progress on this going forward, and I know the state needs to up its game in many ways. I don't know if you've read the newspaper about the health department, but it's kind of a mess over there, and you know, we need to figure out whether OEMS should be, and I know this has been debated for years, OEMS should be in that department, and maybe it should be in some other place. We have a law that says the head of the health commissioner has to be a doctor, and you know, some doctors may be good managers, but most of them just go into the office and tell everyone what to do. And so it doesn't, that's not really, it takes a different kind of managerial skill. And as I said earlier, the programs are so complicated that we need to get this service into a place that has better management. And I apologize for the condition it's in.
And let me just point out, so I know there are a lot of subject matter experts in the room. So if anything you're hearing, you have a question or a comment, please, at least, you know, kind of raise your hand first. Don't just jump in. I got to manage all this. But please, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have some questions, comments, anything burning on what you're hearing, let's conversate. I've got about an hour left here, so we can make this work. Okay? All right. Thank you, sir. So I'm going to, next question here is to Chairman Acree. From a local government perspective, how are these needs impacting your county's emergency services, and what additional support would be most beneficial?
Well, I mean, in this day and age, you know, we talked about workforce earlier, and obviously there's challenges associated with that. And this conveys over to the volunteer workforce, if you will. Some of that, I think, is the culture that we're in, or as a nation. But at the same time, what we can control is some of the things our government does. Some of the things that come to mind, and Dr. Sickles just kind of touched on at least one, and that is some of the CSR, the Controlled Substance Registry, that has come to light in the last few months. A lot of people think it just happened, but please correct me on it. That's been around a little while. It just now came to a head, if you will. It's left some localities scrambling to get things straight. So in Wight County, we were very fortunate that the board was, you know, we're not a large county, so we were able to move kind of quick. We were able to get our CSR stuff straight, and get our DEA license for EMS. Hope everybody, I apologize if I'm about the fitness audience knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that's been a challenge, and I know there's been some extensions and all, but the way I understand the regulations is, if you've already made the advancement, you have to go ahead and engage it. So for example, in Wight County, so back up just a bit on that. Somebody said earlier didn't understand what was the improvement. I don't know that it improved emergency services, but I think the intent was that when a drug is manufactured from, where they say cradle to grave, you could track where that drug was. So that was the intent. Nobody just thought about the fact that in the EMS world, a medic gets a drug box, if they're fortunate enough to have that type of exchange system, you get it from hospital A, you use 1 or 2 meds in there, go to hospital B, they exchange it. Well, those drugs, obviously, they're not able to keep track of them, because now they've been left at hospital B. So I can understand what they're trying to do here, but it's definitely impacted our communities, and again, this audience knows better than anyone how that's been the case. I don't have a solution on that, but you asked some of the challenges, and that's one that, to me, it's been self-imposed either by the federal government. Let's leave it at that, because I got delegates sitting beside me, I'm pointing fingers, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just,
a mistake.
yeah, you know, obviously. But at the same time, with EMS training, if anybody in this room's been in public safety for a number of years, wasn't too many years ago, as a volunteer, you could take an EMT class, an advanced life support class at your local volunteer fire department, your neighboring jurisdiction, etc. And I think the intent was good in that they were trying to standardize and improve standard of care by going to more of a national model. But my personal opinion is, we've got, like I said, experts in the room who speak to it. A number of years ago, we had a whole lot more EMS providers, both paid and volunteer, than we do today. And the population has grown. I'm not so sure that it worked the way that we intended. We obviously are trending with the nation, but Virginia at one time had one of the best, if not the best, EMS system in the country. I'm not gonna say we're not there now, but it's definitely a challenge to remain there. So y'all can see the challenges associated with that. A young man or woman with a family comes down to your local fire department, rescue squad, fire and rescue department, wants to volunteer. You tell them, you want to do EMS too? They say, absolutely, I want to be able to save lives. Well, you need to basically get your either associate's degree or at least take a semester in college to get an EMT class or a paramedic class. I don't know how many of y'all can afford that in your household, but not too many volunteers come back and their spouse or their family be able to take that on. And as a county, obviously, that's expensive too, because a lot of people go, who hasn't gone to college and decided to change their major or maybe not, that wasn't the class for me, and that definitely happens there, and you leave money on the table. So that continues to be a challenge with us. On the fire side, we touched on fire apparatus and all. In Wight County, we're all, for the most part, all volunteer when it comes to the fire aspect of it. So our volunteers take a lot of pride in their apparatus and their stations, and that's something that I think we can't take from them. If you do, then it's just that much closer to them going out the door, in my honest opinion. At the same time, the apparatus is more and more expensive, the wait times are incredible. Sometimes I wonder, just as a citizen maybe, when we're able to get on somebody else's contract and not really make the vendors sharpen their pencils, are we really doing right for our citizens? I'll leave that out for the room to kind of discuss. And then the other aspect, in Wight County, we have a lot of volunteers that are paid somewhere else. And it's kind of like being that mechanic who just loves working on cars and does it in his garage at home and just helps all the neighbors. That's what I always attribute it to. But it's becoming more and more difficult. In Wight County, we have made it as an incentive to give physicals to our volunteers and offer physicals to our volunteers. We feel like in Wight County, we're obligated to do that for their family and, of course, for their safety. But, of course, it goes on from there. These other men and women that volunteer in our community, when they work for another locality, we start talking about presumptive cancers or other type of health conditions. Now we start to wonder, if you're the agency that has the person as the career, are you going to get stuck with paying the bills, or is the place where they volunteer? And I hate to open that can of worms, but it's coming down the road. Eventually it will. And unfortunately, a place like Wight County, that we rely a lot on paid people. If ever there was a time where somebody had to pick which way they're going to go paid or they're going to volunteer, we have to take care of the families. So I could go down the list, but I'll stop there. But there's some challenges that I know that we have.
So I'll just ask for the room. I got a hand in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just expand on that a little bit. Christian from Louisiana County, and I thought you made some good points on training. Obviously NFPA standards. I think we're up to minimum staffing recommendations. You're 5 on a reg. Headed out of the station. Some of the more rural localities are having a tougher time getting to that point. But if we've got career staffing, their expectation is at that point. So are you seeing, given your expertise in the profession, are you seeing a national shift in creating another training level for volunteers, for example, or creating, any changes in this that we should know about in the room today?
I would offer that we don't want 2 different standards. I think we want it more accessible to volunteers, to where we maybe take that time and break it up to where it's manageable. To have 2 different standards, I think, is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, in Wight County, honestly, we use it as a recruitment tool, volunteering. Young man or woman comes down, and volunteers that says, this is really what I think I want to do. They really want to do it, and the training that they get conveys to their career. So I think that's real important that we don't end up mixing up standards. NFPA is an interesting one. There's many people in this room who speak better to it than I will or could. NFPA, it's interesting because I've seen over the years as volunteers, and my dad was a volunteer, so I got into it. I'm gonna use a strong term and say they cherry pick. I gotta have this because of NFPA standard. Okay, well, if you're gonna have that, then what about this? Oh, well, we're okay on that. Can't have it both ways. It troubles me when people in my community that don't know any better because they moved somewhere else and they moved to a volunteer community, and they start talking about career. Well, you say, well, what do you need? A couple people in a fire truck? Well, then, when this man or woman that's a firefighter has to go home to their family, you are trying to meet those standards, the staffing standards, et cetera, for their well-being. So you don't go from just a skeleton, one or two people to get the truck out the door, because what if the volunteers don't show up? So and I don't have a solution, by the way, but that's the challenges. But as far as the standards need to be across the board the same. I just think we need to see how we can make it more accessible. And quite honestly, it's not all the time the volunteer departments. There's probably communities in here that have a mixed or combined system, and they're trying to be able to afford to send their men and women, their firefighters, to these classes or to these programs. So it's everybody in the room, whether they got volunteer or paid, to be able to break it apart, I think would be very beneficial. Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So my question to the room was, just, by show of hands, in your counties, localities, how many volunteer departments or combination systems? First of all, how many combination systems do we have in the room? We have paid and volunteers. So do we have any with just straight volunteers and no? Okay, and that's the beauty of VACo, because when we start talking about a standard, and really we have to come together, because what Prince William County does in the north and how big that is, and what happens in a rural area that just relies on volunteers, to that standard that we're talking about, these are the effects that we have, and I appreciate the delegate mentioning EMS and how challenging it's become, because all of this now affects everything that's going on. We're going to get into this whole drug box program a little bit, but I think these are why this discussion is important, and hopefully we can leave out of here with some takeaways, or even some ideas that you have that you could probably share with even the panelists and just the room, because that's what this conversation is about. Dialogue, open dialogue. Randy, I don't want to leave you out on this. You got anything you want to add in this particular?
One thing I'll add that Joel touched on, used the word culture, and we talked about this last year in this very setting. One of the things that impresses me quite a bit, and I don't know if anyone in here is from Chesterfield County, but Chesterfield has a reputation of creating a very healthy workplace, placing value, and what's the purpose of me working, whether I work for fire, EMS, whatever my role is. At the end of the day, one of the things I've learned in public safety, or just in general as a person in the workforce, you can create money streams, you can give money, but at the end of the day, every single person wants to know that they have some value, and when they get up every morning, or they work evening shift or midnights, they want to know that they have a purpose of why they're doing what they're doing. And at the end of the day, and everybody in here has the title of a leader, that's what leadership is right there, is people feeling valued in the workplace. And I really think, I might be a lone voice crying out in the wilderness, but I think one of the biggest cultural problems we have, especially in public safety in Virginia, is the value of, we appreciate what you're doing as a deputy, city police officer, trooper, fire, EMS. That is immeasurable in today's culture. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you for that, actually. So let's jump right into this whole drug box. Let's get there. All right, so how can local governments proactively address these regulatory changes while ensuring community access to safe disposal options? Does that make sense? No? Yeah. That's really difficult. That's wrong here. All right, let's see. Okay, so this is for the room, and we can dialogue this together. has anyone adopted implementing drug disposal programs in light of these changes and to share community responses? So anybody want to talk about, and I can tell you, let me give Principal County, we dumped $3 million into making all these changes for the drug watch program. Literally, I have a main hub where the meds will be, and 6 stations are kind of, I guess, hot spots, if you will. $3 million to do this, and an ongoing expense of $1.8 million, only to find out now that this has been extended to April. And I think really what I'm hearing is that it doesn't really matter about the April extension, because at some point we are going to literally have to do this anyway. Supervisor Bailey, I know you're not on this panel, but you have a lot of insight to this. I really want to give you an opportunity to speak to it, if you don't mind.
All right, I'm standing up where I'm not talking to y'all back, but to further elaborate about this, the Patient Drug Protection Act was passed in 2013. Obama signed it into law in 2013. So we had 10 years to prepare for this. The first 5 years were on the drug companies to come up with serial numbers on the drugs so they could track the drugs. But it's been known on a national level for almost 12 years that this was coming. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's Office of EMS, don't know the Health Department, don't know the Board of Pharmacy, but it was dropped. It was not on their radar until a little over a year ago, and now we are all in crisis mode to get it to the finish line and get everybody their DEA license and all of that. The congressional delegations wrote letters to the Board of Pharmacy, the DEA and the National Pharmacy, and the National Pharmacy wrote back, we never intended for this to harm pre-hospital EMS. And further, you've had over 10 years to implement this. So what do we do now? There has been 2 extensions put on. Originally it was 13 and it was expanded to 14, November 14. Now it's gone until actually November of 25. But Virginia has put a send-down clause that the hospitals will no longer do the drugs after the end of April of 25. So we've got a fairly short window to do this. Unfortunately, there's huge cost tied to this. You're talking about an unfunded mandate. You see it in Prince William County, it was in millions of dollars to implement, and that's going to be an ongoing cost to your jurisdictions. With EMS, when you do transport EMS and you're billing, you can bill BLS or you can bill ALS. So BLS calls like $500, ALS calls like $1,000, and I'm just rounding figures up. But if you run a call, which I'm a medic and I ran a call a couple of weeks ago, we dumped 4 drug boxes on that patient. Rule of thumb, it's $1,000 worth of drugs in each drug box. So that's $4,000 that we put into that patient. Unfortunately, we called the code in the field. The patient did not make it. We did not transport. So we have no way of recouping that money. And that's an ongoing thing. Yes, sir.
Wise County, Rusty Peters. We had a rescue squad that had a call last year. Had 3 ODs. They ended up putting 13 doses in, and then when they got them back, they refused to go. I don't know how many thousands of dollars it cost this rescue squad. They couldn't get a penny back.
Now, further complicating this is the cost of the drugs and how often you use the drugs with the shelf life. So unfortunately, when you're in a rural area, which is where ALS is really needed, it's not needed when you're 10 minutes from the hospital, it's needed when you're 2 hours away from the hospital. What we are seeing throughout the state, agency after agency after agency is dropping their ALS license, meaning they will not be able to perform life-saving measures in the field anymore, not like what we should do. And I've been involved with this for 50 years. It used to be you throw them in a stretcher and carry them to the hospital. Nowadays, the expectation is you're bringing the emergency room to them. We're providing procedures and so forth that was unheard of 40, 50 years ago. But we are where we are. If, like Prince William County, my county, Charlotte County, we've already got our license. We no longer can exchange, even though the hospitals will do it until April, the end of April. Once you get that license, you're on your own, and you have to provide those medications through an expensive process, whether you go with the vending machine, which costs about $30,000, and then there's security associated with that, or you have a lot of rural areas are getting gun safes and putting the drugs in gun safes. Now that's good for part of it, but part of it is refrigerated, and you've got to factor that side into the equation too. The security that is necessary, 24-hour surveillance there, that's tied into the dispatch center. So we're already seeing problems at 3 o'clock in the morning when a call comes in and somebody goes in and, does not deactivate the alarm system, and the alarm system goes off. That's causing problems, but that's something that we'll have to work through, on a local basis. But it's a shame that we are like this. I'm pretty active on the national level, and when this first come to light a year ago, I was talking to my partners in other states. We did this 5 years ago. We did that 6 years ago. We did that, whatever time frame, and they had time to work through, fail to plan, plan to fail. That's what happened here. We failed to plan, so we're failing with what's going on. There are many jurisdictions still in the Commonwealth that aren't even aware of some of these changes are coming. And I think it was, the last report I saw was something to the tune of 60 agencies that has not even started the process. And, even if you start the process, it's time consuming. First you've got to get the drug license, you have to get the cabinet and the alarm system and all of that, get that squared away. That takes time. It's an inspection process, and then only then you can apply for the
So
DEA.
with that in mind, I work for York County and Isle of Wight as a board member. Been fortunate that both of our agencies have already got our DEA license and inventory, started our inventory. In Hampton Roads, there were 3 on the 28th of October. It was Isle of Wight, York County, and the City of Newport News. So we've been very fortunate with that. It depends on your EMS agency too. You had mentioned rural areas, and our both communities I work in, we're close to a hospital, but we work the patient. We don't just go in the truck and go down the road. The different systems that you talk about are expensive, but at the end of the day, when I worked down in North Carolina as a paramedic, we did this all the time. I worked in Bertie County, and it's a relatively large county with only 4 medic units. And we did this almost 10 years ago, so it's doable. The thing is, we got to learn from each other. And I know that Mr. Angry had mentioned how they've got their set up, the hub and the spokes is what they call that type of model. So there's different elements out there, and your counties, like in Isle of Wight County, we're kind of lopsided. Our population is more on the northeast, so the hub doesn't work as well, but we've managed to make it work to a degree. So I think that's why in the room it's good to collaborate on what people are doing and how they're kind of getting there regarding this program.
As important as this is, and the cost, the unfunded or the cost that's going to be ongoing to the jurisdiction, that's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is how many units are across the state with the drugs in it, but nobody to respond. That is huge. And we hear, and I'm part of the Fire Services Board. We go all over the state. We don't have people. We don't have people. We don't have money to pay them. We don't have, this, that, and that. It's a money issue. And what is very alarming to me, I went to the budget, session thing this morning. They talked about all these budget surplus. I think it's $1.4 billion budget surplus. Thereabout. But in the spending priorities, fire and EMS is not even mentioned. It's not even on the radar. We've got to come together and get it on the radar.
So we talked about, and Randy touched on this if you don't mind. In our last session, we talked about the community's culture. And I've been blessed with both localities that I'm in. We've got a robust volunteer program. I know one fire station brings in about 10 volunteers a month. But then again, we're sandwiched between 2 large cities, so they don't have a volunteer program. So you've got to be able to capitalize on your area, location, right? But it has to do with the way that you treat your first responders and as a group of volunteers. Our volunteers, because they do come with a career type background, they like the management part also. They like to run the calls, but they also want to manage the organization. So it's knowing that you're volunteers to keep those trucks staffed. We've been very fortunate with staffing. But the challenge is getting the training.
The Finch report that was just released, I guess 3 weeks ago on the Office of EMS, it mentioned in there we have a 48% decline in the last 4 years of volunteers, in Virginia, which is huge. Now, I kind of changed the subject here, but was there any other questions on the drug thing?
I think that's good unless.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I was going to talk about, he covered most of it. I can talk to you
I was just curious
about
in the
that.
crowd, and I see a hand back there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Joe Brown from Henry County, Supervisor. You're talking about the drug boxes, all the counties in Virginia are the same issue that we're in. And we didn't get the information until last year, and we're struggling to try to adapt and overcome. And a lot of the local volunteers, which are just like many volunteers throughout Virginia, are having problems even paying the bills, keeping the doors open. And with this aspect of having a safe zone or a secured place to put your bed boxes, camera, alarms, and all that, it's expensive to a volunteer that's gonna have to pay for it, and the state's not supporting for it. Luckily, in our county, our public safety come through and said, and they worked it out, that they can pick up the drug boxes and be responsible for them, and we could sign them out through the county. And whenever our drug boxes are used, we can turn it into the county, they'll replace it to us, they'll turn it in and get one to replace it. So that seems to be work out fairly decent for our county. Now, of course, we're a smaller county. I don't know how that would work in your larger counties that has a whole lot more land mass, but our public safety is kind of centrally located in the county, and it's pretty easy for, you know, the volunteers to go over there and replace the drug boxes for it. So that's one thing that I can say that's been good for our county. But getting back on the hand of volunteers, our county is just like all other counties. Our volunteer, when you said 48%, I think it was, I think it's more greater than that in our county. One of the issues that I see now is that young people are not motivated to do anything without pay. You know, the word volunteerism in our county is almost gone, and that's not only in the volunteers and the EMS setups, you know, the fire departments, all that. That's all across the board with all your volunteer organizations, for instance, like the Rotary Club, Rules Club, anything like that's got volunteerism attached to it is dying out. One thing that I would like to see somehow is the state put emphasis on advertising volunteers, you know, putting money into the system to show how volunteers are needing. And I'm sure many squads has done it in their areas, but we're doing a reenactment, an accident reenactment at our high school at prom night coming up in April. And it involves all the EMS spectrum, everywhere, air care to our local funeral department, state police, county, fire, rescue squad, everything is going to be involved in it. It's to let young people know what the consequences are for driving, texting, and driving influenced DUIs. But also it's used as a job recruitment tool, you know, for our squads, not only for the fire department, for the rescue squad, for the police departments and so forth, doing job recruitments also. So I mean, we are really trying hard to try to keep our volunteers up, because I'm telling you, once we lose our volunteers, you know, we're going to be in a problem. I'm serious. This is not just Henry County's problem. This is Virginia's problem. And we've got to somehow work on this issue to figure out what can we do to keep our volunteers. You know, the young people, we've got to change their thought, their mind thoughts on what it is. If they don't see anything, we're going to advertisement on it. And we are starting to push a campaign. Our county is actually doing a campaign on our local networks in our county, advertisement on volunteers. You know, trying to recruit volunteers for all of our EMS setups. So, you know, I mean, I don't know, like I said about your drug boxes that you can do in a smaller county, but you might talk to your public safety, maybe your public safety will pick up those, you know, that'll save you from having to go through all the processes of, you know, doing a safe room, getting securities, 24-hour video service that you can see it. So that's just some things I thought I'd throw in.
So one small element, because I know Walt had mentioned security, working on two different systems. One system that I'm involved in does have the higher tech, if you will, I mean, it doesn't go to anybody, but they spent quite a bit of money so that dispatch could see and dispatch would get the alarm. In Wight County, I put it out there if we're wrong, but according to, we got inspected and we passed. ADT did it for $500. Came in the next day, put the system in, and they're monitoring it. So, first of all, as somebody that works in it as a career, thank goodness we have so many people with their heads in the game to come up with solutions. So there's some ways to, and again, that's why we collaborate, come up with ideas and ways that we can make it affordable, so we make it happen.
Thank you.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Paul Bates, Culpeper County, and we too have the same problem. When you look at the regs for the NFPA, the drug boxes, several years back, the increased paperwork, And when you talk about volunteers, they volunteer because they want to ride a truck, they want to go put out a fire, they want to help somebody in a time of need when it comes to EMS. One thing that Culpeper did that I think is pretty cutting edge is in 2021, we opened up a state-of-the-art career technical education center, which has every area that you can think of, from cybersecurity, the building trades, automotive. But one thing that we did add is we put firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and EMT training, which is in the CTEC class. And as a young person, your time off, you know, you're going to school all day, and the last thing you want to do in your off time is go, you know, take all these hours for your firefighter 1 class or whatever. So now they're getting credit in school to do that, and that is really, so far, it's produced, it's working well. And again, you talk about the ones, the majority, we have a strictly, a solely volunteer fire department, but we do have a hybrid when it comes to the EMS. And the majority of our, you know, firefighters are career staff in other jurisdictions that come back and function in Culpeper. But I just thought that I would bring that up. If you do have the opportunity for, you know, career tech, you could put these types of classes where these kids are getting credit, doing something that they enjoy, and they're not taking their all to do the classes.
And thank you for that, because that was, that ties well with marketing and really recruiting. And I'll just say this here because I am a volunteer, and it is very hard when you keep changing the standards of, you know, EMS, like EMT school is a school that you have to do on your time, but when you change those and add more hours of doing this, and then we got the whole drug pop issue, like it literally start eating into the little time that you might have had for your family, because you got a job, you want to help in your community, and then you extended it more. So I'm going to stop there because this topic is very near and dear to me. I think really volunteers, everybody's a volunteer, and I think if we really marketed that better and have programs such as the CT program, we could do a lot. We will find that you will have a lot of folks that want to do this. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, and I'm glad you mentioned this about the school setups. Our school this year has come to where we're going to start back our EMT 1, firefighter 1 classes. I would ask the state, per se, to take a look at supporting school systems with supplements to take care of paying for the students, or paying at least on to, you know, that for the school systems, because, you know, they're having to pay for new teachers and so forth, and have to pay the school systems, you know. So if we could get help from the state also, that would help that out greatly also.
What's the situation like in the community colleges?
Well, we have that in our community colleges too, but years ago was, you know, for many people that's been in the EMS setup for years, knows that years ago they had your basic EMT class in high school, your basic firefighter 1 from high school. So when you got out of high school, you could go to a squad such as my squad, serve a year there for going through the schools. And at least you put your time in for your education that you got in school. And we get a year worth of usage out of you from that also. But our technical schools also has classes on advanced EMT and so forth, EMT immediate and all that. You know, they've got all those classes also in our community colleges. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the young people before they get out of school to show them that there is not only a use for volunteers, but there's a career also. You know, volunteer and career is two different things, you know, but you can work from volunteer into career.
I think you bring up a really good point. Is there something about being a 16-year-old that was fortunate enough to grow up around the fire department? When you go through an NFPA, it wasn't back then, it was the state of Virginia, certified firefighter program, and you get your firefighter 1, and they send you that certificate. At 16 years old, or any age, but particularly when you're 16, you feel like, you know, this might be where I want to go. You get grounded in it, you get a foundation. And you said, well, what's next? And then what's next? It can build into a career or just a life of volunteer service, which is perfect. But I think that pulls us in there. The other element with this is that back in our days, you did a firefighter 1 class, and there might have been, I don't want to tell anybody, but maybe there was 5 instructors to do the burn day, you know, where you'd have the live fire. But as anybody knows today, you have to have a safety, you have to have this, this, and this. It becomes very strenuous on the system to get those instructors there. And the Department of Fire programs is not what it once was. There used to be a lot of adjuncts. You'd have a lot of people that come out, and you had different, most of them would volunteer, But when you went to do that community class or whatever, you had plenty of people to come out and do the practicals. And it comes down to funding, and we've seen the decline over the years of Department of Fire programs, not on their, but just trying to get people to instruct, to come out to support these programs for these young people or for any age group.
Absolutely.
Following up on your question of the community college system, yes, they are available through the community college system, but that comes at a cost. And that is hurting the volunteer side. When I came along, EMT was free. Firefighter 1 was free. Firefighter 2 was free. I went all the way through the paramedic program and didn't spend a dime. Today, you're looking to go through the paramedic program, $12,000 in 2 years. So when the switch was made and put EMS, especially on ALS level, in a certified training facility and out of the fire hose, that's when we started losing volunteers because of the time commitment. You know, most of us in rural areas have to travel an hour one way to get to them. And after working all day, you know, fewer and fewer people, if anybody, is willing to travel that hour to get it. And then the cost out of pocket to do it. The agencies don't have the funds to put somebody through, you know, a $12,000 class, and then what if you don't pass? And you have a failure rate that's pretty high, you know, as well.
How about retention, you know, after they pay? If you've been through and paid $12,000 and got your credentials, how long do they last?
That's a struggle, not just a volunteer, but career.
It depends on the contract.
Even
You gotta say you got
career,
a contract.
you're right, there could be a contract, but we've seen localities willing to buy out your contract. You know, if you're gonna come work
Oh,
for
absolutely.
Department X, and then you say, well, I owe my county now $3,000 on a
The
contract.
smaller departments are the one losing because they're the training grounds. The bigger departments are pulling them to pay.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if I could, several issues. How many people in here have a fully volunteer EMS squad right now that's maintaining?
Our county has kind of
Fully volunteer.
one on
Okay?
EMS.
EMS. Notice most of us don't. Okay, there's several reasons there, and I'm gonna bring it back to the state in a minute. Rural EMS, okay? I've been a volunteer all my life. I'm also a career chief, been a chief officer for 20 years. I know both sides of the fence. Why is rural EMS failing? It's failing because we don't have people that have storefronts anymore, that when the alarm goes off, that we can shut the storefront and run the calls. They're no longer there.
Yeah,
In rural communities, they go into urban communities to make a living. That's number one, okay? Why else don't we have it? Because as a volunteer, we have a 36-minute transport time to our local hospital. If I run that call as a volunteer, I'm 2.5 hours of my day is gone for one incident. How many people right now have 2.5 hours, even retired, that you can run that? There's nobody there, okay? The gentleman from York County, he hit on something very important. And Delegate, I hope you pay attention. When the OEMS decided that we wanted to go to a national registry curriculum, okay? I took paramedic in 1993. I spent 1 year at MCV, 4 hours of classroom per week, 8 hours of practical. I got my paramedic, had it ever since. If I send a new firefighter to paramedic right now, it's 2.5 years. And they got to come out, most of them with an associate's degree. MCV or VCU is the only one that doesn't happen. Okay? Nobody can afford to do that anymore. We talk about things, let's put them, I attended a conference about a year ago. And we were talking about this whole drug box issue. And I had, anybody here work with OEMS? Good, I'm gonna talk about it. Okay? The person from OEMS stood up at the Virginia Fire Chiefs Conference and we were talking about it and he says, how many of you all still do a drug box exchange? And we raised our hand. He goes, well, you've been doing it wrong all along, it's about time you're doing it right. Pardon my French, I swear as I'm standing here, I said, sir, anybody that lost $30 million, I could care less what you think. Okay, so that's the reality. That's the reality. Okay? So the problem there lies within. He had a great point. Training. The Commonwealth of Virginia had the greatest EMS training at the Virginia EMS Symposium. It was nationally known. It had nationally speakers. That's where most of the career
and volunteer providers got their training. We didn't do anything about it. It wasn't our fault. The rural EMS, the urban EMS, we lost a training avenue because of embezzlement and fraud, because OEMS can't take care of their own money. When we lost cardiac tech, when we lost Virginia paramedic, okay, because we wanted to go national, the care didn't get any better, the requirement did. So when we go to train folks now, if I want to train someone to be an ALS provider, it's going to take me 2 years, and as Walt said, $10,000 to $14,000. Now, the good part about that is that they're going to be real marketable on the career side. Half of my volunteer department is career firefighters somewhere else. That works exceptionally well on their day off.
Come on.
It stinks on their day off.
Come on.
Guess what career firefighters are going through right now? Staffing shortages. A lot of our people are being mandatory back at work, so that takes away from our volunteer organizations. Okay? As Lunenburg County, the county I represent, we had to go and institute paid EMS programs, because here's the other piece of it. Here's the other piece of it. The acuity rate for our patients right now is about 5%. Let me repeat that. The acuity rate of our patients is 5%. The other 95% of the calls we go on could simply be put in a car or simply go to a doctor's office. Because now EMS is a ride. We're an Uber. That's all we are. Okay? So the call load is steadily increasing. The providers are steadily decreasing. And if I hate it, I'm sorry I'm going to say this. If I hear one more person tell me we got to have another study, if you want to study, you want to do another study, ride with me. Okay? I'm telling you. We can study it in the field. All right? Now, a couple of points to my colleagues with the drug box. Okay? The drug box thing was thrown on us. Nobody paid any attention to it for the last 9 years. We were told we had to have it by November. It took every legislator, I think, across Virginia to go, wait a minute, we only have 32% of the agencies ready to go. And then finally we got an extension. So here's the other part of it. When you apply for the CSR, you've got to wait 8 weeks to get your DEA license. Okay? And now, how many of you had in your last budget, we will need $30,000 for cabinetry and electronics? Okay? So when OEMS lost 30-some thousand, 30 million rather, we lost our RSAF funding. Our 80 localities was held up, right? So guess what? For RSAF next cycle, they're saying, hey, we're going to let you apply for some drug stuff. Guess what, people? We had to have it last year. So it's a possibility we're not going to recruit that. Am I mad about it? 100% I am. The smaller agencies, like the gentleman was talking back there, here's the solution, okay? If you don't want to store 32 drugs, okay, work with your local pharmacy or contractors. You don't have to get in the drug game. Your local pharmacies, if you have somebody, will restock your boxes, come to your facility, obviously a nominal fee, but people that can't afford to stock 32 drugs and have them expire because we only use Toradol once a year, but I got to stock it, or we don't use whatever drug, you know. Work with your local pharmacies and you can do that. You still have to have the storage, but as some people would say, Prince William, how many million? All you need is a closet, you need a lock, a filing cabinet to work, you need 2 security cameras and 2 ways to see. Okay? It's ways around the process. But don't feel like any of you are fighting something that everybody else is. When we talk about certifications, you know what the certification is to be a firefighter in Virginia? Do you know what you need to do? Everybody talks about NFPA standard. Anybody in here not 18 years old? You're hired. You don't have to have EVOC, you don't have to have firefighter 1, 2, nothing. You're hired. Okay? We've been pushing to try to get something as simple as EVOC for years, and we've been fighting for, right? So the bottom line is, Yeah, I can preach all day. But the bottom line is, we're killing ourselves with regulations and bureaucracy. Okay? For the people in the field, we don't need another study, we need some action.
And
Right.
because honestly, we could spend really all day on just this one topic alone, but thank you for your passion on that, because everything you said is spot on. I'm gonna,
When you speak about action, I'm gonna take some action.
yes.
A year ago, I was sitting here and we discussed some of these same things. This is some of the solutions that we have come up with. Because we're a law enforcement, veteran-owned company. We're not a revenue-driven company. One of the things that we're doing in Virginia is this. When we partner with a jurisdiction with our traffic safety technology, which is no cost to the jurisdiction, for those jurisdictions that are open to, we provide grant funding for your crisis intervention team, your mental health programs, also any type of officer wellness programs that you have in place, and under the, how do I say this? You guys were talking about fire EMS, the rescue squads, the lack of funds, anything that is centric to public safety in that jurisdiction, we provide grant funding. We also provide scholarships if you've got 3 high schools in your county or your location, your jurisdiction. For those seniors that want to pursue a criminal justice career or public safety, fire and EMS, whether it's at trade school, community college, 4-year school, we provide scholarships up to $5,000 to offset that cost as an incentive, especially if they come from a family that it's hard to provide those costs. Those are the things of, when I was a member of the state police, I've always been a logical thinker. If you know what Occam's razor, the philosophy of Occam's razor,
Yes.
if you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you. Sometimes the most simple solutions are the best solutions. And so what we have done over the past year, we brainstormed, how can we, because when we come into a jurisdiction, we suddenly become a stakeholder. We don't just get you to sign a contract, thanks so much, see you later. We become a stakeholder in that jurisdiction, and we want to see you successful. So that's one of the things that we're doing as a business. Go ahead, sir.
That literally was my question for you. Literally was.
Well, you couldn't write a Netflix script on how all this kind of works.
Yeah, 'cause we're gonna be all over the place, but that was perfect, because I'm gonna follow that up with Chairman Acree. What are the primary recruitment and retention challenges your county faces in public safety staffing, and what strategies are proving most effective?
So from a law enforcement standpoint, our sheriff has mentioned, we get a report, we're from a sheriff, we don't have a police department, but we're fully staffed when it comes to our sheriff's department. And I think that's a reflection on the community and how they treat their people in public safety. When it comes to EMS, we do have virtually an all-paid EMS system. We have no problem recruiting there, no more than anyone else in the region, but we're fully staffed. The volunteer stuff we've touched on, but it does come back to, I think, the way the community uses public safety workers and those people that provide the service. So we're very fortunate. And I'd say on both sides of the river, York County is seemingly the same type of situation. Obviously with Page, it takes a little while to get people trained up, which is we've touched on here today, but very fortunate. So particularly people in this room, it seems like to me they're very engaged, otherwise they wouldn't have sat here. Knowing that public safety is important, recognizing the individuals, y'all have got servants' hearts, understanding where they're coming from. I think that goes a lot further than any program or money can throw at anybody.
Yes. And Delegate Sickles, I got for you. Where are we there? Okay, there you go. Are there legislative efforts underway to support public safety recruitment and retention across Virginia?
Not to my knowledge, but I don't spend as much time as I probably should on the education front. We do have a lot of folks worry about the shortages that we have in a lot of the things that we've talked about today. We can't get instructors in some of our community colleges classes that they need to take or some of these things. So, and we had free community college for some categories of folks, which I can't remember what they were in the the last administration. But community college, you know, and you're talking about $12,000, you know, the state should be able to help with some of that. I should be on a limb here, because we've got a lot of people that have got to go along with things, but personnel and retaining them. When we have, all over the place, when we have medical needs, we will pay for a residency in a rural area, high needs area, for a doctor to pay back some loans, or a nurse, or some other kind of medical specialty. Oftentimes they will leave after their first their time that they're committed to is up. That's been something that people believe happens, and I think they have the data to show it. So, like the teacher shortage, at least we have a teacher shortage in Northern Virginia. I don't know if y'all do, but growing your own in teaching and growing your own in the healthcare fields, you can stay where you grew up in the healthcare business, or you should be able to. You should be able to have a career. I love what someone said earlier about making people feel valuable in their careers. We need to do that, and we need to do that in every area. So the 7th and 8th graders know that they can stay where they grew up if they go into a medical field, or if they go into teaching. And those two areas are things that we can kind of, with governmental funded areas, that we can be somewhat in charge of. And then the economy, you know, if you have those things, the economy can grow. We try to recruit businesses to Virginia, and the first thing you want to know is what the hospital like, what's the airport like. Right now we're focusing on business ready sites, because all of our competitors in South, particularly light manufacturing, things like that, they're providing them. You drive on the site, there's a building there, there's gas, there's electric, there's roads, and we are just catching up on some of that, doing that, and so that the stuff you're talking about here today, I would call human infrastructure, which we're lacking, and I hear you saying that we are going. The future is worrisome for probably everybody sitting in this room. So that's what we're trying to do. Whether we're being successful or not, I don't know. You tell me. We have shortages. We have a shortage of psychiatrists, psychiatric nurse practitioners, LCSWs, counselors, all those. We don't pay them very much, and that's one of the reasons. But that's not the only reason. But we need to do more to create our own at home. And then that will help us with our economic development initiatives, let's hope.
Thank you for that. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, we're pushing right up on about 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes left. I'm going to switch into technologies.
What can we do to get the state turned loose of some of that $1.2 billion they're holding on to? Can't y'all get together? What good is it to have all this economic
Well,
development?
I think the thing you mentioned there was it's not necessarily guaranteed about the surplus.
No, I mean, the state's in good shape. You know, we're a state that is highly subsidized, not subsidized, but we benefit from the federal government more than any other state in the United States. We have the highest per capita federal spending in our state and anywhere else but maybe Alaska, because they don't have any capitals. But we are, you know, we got this huge submarine program we're doing. We have 4,000, 5,000 job openings in Newport News and shipyard over time. But you make a good point. I want to invest it in teachers and solving some of these healthcare problems, getting services to parents with disabled children, making sure, you know, those of us are getting on. One of the things that's, you know, Medicaid pays for nursing home care. You have to be poor to qualify in Virginia. We have a tsunami coming in long-term care. So there's going to be plenty of places to spend that money. Plenty of places to spend that money. And we want to do it the best way possible. There's a big initiative you're going to see on December 18th, a proposal to do $1 billion plus tax cut. That's what people want to do with it. So we're going to have to decide balancing all the things that people want to come out with the right solution.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to get you, and then you, and then.
Sure. Hi, my name is Tanya Anderson. I'm a grant writer right now at the Tactical Data Group. I write grants for municipalities. The thing is that I used to be the chief of staff for state representative, and I'm the mother of a police officer. What I need to tell all of you right now is that none of this will work without public safety, without the law enforcement, without the firefighters, without the EMS. So we can go to all these meetings and make all these plans and highways and energy and submarines and whatever. It's not going to work unless this comes first. So I'm going to tell you this right now. Each one of you guys all know, like legislators, and they go to your fish fries and bingo and all that stuff. You need to tell them without you, none of this is going to work. It's not the water, the energy, the firefighter. It comes down to the police officer showing up, the EMS, and I want you to say that. So it's just not these three gentlemen right here. It is, you all know them. That should be one united voice. Without us, none of this works. For our kids.
One of the things I'm hearing everybody say is we need to change the way we've always done things, because back in the old days, we had a great system. I've heard about that today. We had a great system in the past. And we're funding it the same way. Things don't change fast in Virginia. And so what you are saying now, we need to change the way we do things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what we're saying is, everybody on the board of supervisors in here, the majority of our budget goes towards the school system. We listened to the budget proposal this morning. There's money earmarked coming up in the biennium for teachers' salaries, all of that. The school system, they represent probably 1/8 of our constituency when you students to total membership. So we're dealing with the students for 7 months out the year, but nobody's dealing with the rest of the community that we protect 24/7. That's the problem. We talk about we want to pay teachers, but at no point in the game have we increased funding for fire, EMS, or police. I think that's the frustration here. We always hear teachers need more money. 7 months out the year, they teach students.
Well, the state can't help you with that. I mean, you're going to have to govern your own counties like you see fit.
State controls that.
That's the attitude.
I'm pretty sure we all pay state taxes.
That's the attitude. We need help. That's what we're fighting, right? That's the attitude we're all fighting.
I
heard about the message.
Through you all.
Randy, I'm gonna
You heard it here first. Just one thing.
every vote's gonna. This is good. One second.
I'll defer to you.
Okay.
Just one thing, in my county, why can't we take some of the money that the state's saving on mowing the grass and put it towards these guys? I don't know about y'all, y'all get y'all's grass mowed in y'all's county?
Okay.
The goats where we were on the other end of the state.
All right, sir.
A follow-up of what we can do. Delegate Sickles was right in the 2175 bill. We did that, an evaluation of ourselves with the county administrators, boards, and so forth, and that needed validating. The VCU, Doug Wilder School, has done that, and I was part of that process. They carried what study that we did way beyond. When I first met with the working group, the person said, holy cow, how are you doing this with no funding? This is insane. So that study from the VCU group is in the governor's office. One of the obstacles that we had with the 2175 was the Secretary of Public Safety, and he wrote a scathing letter against what we were trying to do. We have taken the last year and we have educated him, and now he is an advocate for us. In fact, when he got the draft, he made a couple changes in there, positive changes for us. Now it's on us. Each of us are our best lobbyists. The delegate here, he's just hearing from us today. We've got to go back with the 2175 validated study and start demanding that the Commonwealth of Virginia step up to the plate and start funding fire and EMS. Are we going to get it all, right away? No, but we've got to have a plan. And a perfect example was last night. I did not witness it, because of my passion for this, because of my work for it. I had 4 people come to me. One of the members of our VACo working group here collapsed in the elevator last night. Did any of y'all see that or witness that? 40 minutes to get somebody there. I'm not throwing a local organization under the bus. I don't know what's going on, but what we're seeing in the studies is those response times growing more and more and more. And when Wayne talked about the hospital time, we're seeing huge delays in getting a patient off of our structure into the hospital. It's not uncommon for EMS agencies to be at the hospital for over an hour getting that patient off. So what he talked about, 2 hours and a half, it's actually, in some cases, 4 hours because of that size. So please be on the lookout for that. I'm going to count on Jeremy to share that information. The patient with everybody.
So I am going to say, walk ahead and wrapping this up, because we're gonna wrap up now. I got you guys 1 minute over. This is a very hearty discussion. I say we do this again at some point, but I want to just thank our panelists, so if we can get a round of applause for them.